Um, okay, well, thank you. So, hello, everyone, and good afternoon. And thanks for joining the Food Policy Council's Florida Food Forum, hosted by the Policy Committee of the Council. We do these on a monthly basis, and some of you, maybe most of you online, are receiving routine emails about the date and time and subject of our monthly forums. And we do encourage you to participate, even if it may be a subject area that is not of immediate interest to you. What we've discovered is if anyone has interest in food systems, food policy in the state of Florida, that it does seem like each of our monthly events is of interest to them, even if just a little bit. So please join us on a regular basis if you have time and inclination, and tell your friends about the Florida Food Policy Council and our monthly forums. I am Del DeChant, chair of the Policy Committee of the Council, and Jennifer Parker is our co-chair. And I believe she is away for this session, but if she's on the line, she can signal with a hello, although I think that she is out of the area for this event. With us today and online and playing an enormously important role from the Council is the Council's Administrative Assistant, Kendra Love. Kendra will be handling the technical and managerial aspects of our meeting, and I'm also asking Kendra to let us all know when the session is drawing close to conclusion and to give us an alert when we have 5 minutes left. And I'm going to ask Kendra to just say a few words about the technical aspects of how we do the meetings and what the electronic aspects of this phone call are about. So Kendra, if you would tell us a little bit about the technical aspects so everyone is familiar.
Yes, hi everyone. So the most important thing would probably be the muting process. So I can mute you, and you can also mute yourselves. In order to mute and unmute, you just want to push star and then the number 6 on your phone, and that will allow you to mute yourself or unmute. If you are using our online tool, right at the bottom of the screen, you have the ability to mute and unmute by clicking the button at the bottom.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Kendra. And again, thank you so much for assisting with the technical aspects of this session. And I do want to make a note, and this is a regular policy note that we make on all of our sessions, is that the views and positions of the presenters do not represent the views of the Florida Food Policy Council. We are a forum for the offering and sharing of information and encourage diversity and communication within the food system. That being said, for now, our topic this month is animal welfare. And thanks again for joining us. A document introducing our topic for today is posted on the Council's blog site. And if you registered for the event, you have seen the document. We welcome James Wildman to leadership of the forum this month. And as I turn things over to James, I'm going to ask that he tell us a little bit about himself and what inspired him to take leadership on this important area of our food system. There is a brief bio for James that's on the website, but I would like James just to tell us in his own words about himself. And so it is with pleasure and enthusiasm that we welcome James Wildman to our event, the Florida Food Forum for the month of September. James.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me out to talk with you today. Again, my name is James Wildman. I am the Humane Educator for the Animal Rights Foundation of Florida. And my lifestyle is pretty much like everybody else's lifestyle. What I grew up with, meat, dairy, eggs, and fish. And as I got older, I just started to question my food choices and how what I choose to eat, how it affects not only myself, but other animals and the environment. And so I came to a conclusion that it wasn't necessary. And for over 18 years now, I've pretty much solidified that conclusion that it's not necessary to consume animal products, and perhaps it's not even in our best interest. And so today I'm going to talk to you about the alternative perspective. It's funny, when I go into high schools, I've every now and then I've had a student say to me, "Oh, I thought the presentation was too one-sided," and I look at the board, and I work for the Animal Rights Foundation of Florida. I'm giving the other side, the side that she was talking about is the side that we see 99% of the time. So most of us don't question what we put on our plate, what we put in our bodies. So today I'm here to talk to you about those decisions. So let me get started. I'm going to share my presentation with you. Let's see. Okay, so since 2007, I've given over 5,000 presentations on animal rights, empowering youth and adults through compassion and empathy. During the school year, I spend most of my time in high school and college classrooms giving presentations on the benefits of a plant-based diet for our health, the environment, and the welfare of animals. The presentation has been given in over 75 high schools and universities in South Florida, including FAU, FIU, and the University of Miami. In fact, I'm actually just coming back yesterday from a college in Texas. So I do actually travel throughout the US as well, and I've given presentations in Norway and Canada as well. Our 101 Reasons to Go Vegan video has been translated into 18 languages and has over 4 million views total on YouTube. And a recent 10-minute version of the presentation has generated over 42 million views on Facebook. Now today I'm going to be talking about animal welfare in the food industry and the state of the industry from an animal rights perspective. Now, when it comes to animal welfare policies, there really hasn't been much legislative or regulatory action around farm animal issues in Florida, other than the historic gestation crate ban back in 2002. In November 2002, over 2.5 million Floridians voted to prohibit the cruel confinement of pregnant pigs in factory farms. It was the first time that a farming practice had been banned because of its inherent cruelty in the United States. After a 6-year phase-out period, this initiative took effect on November 5th, 2008. The gestation crate ban reads as such. Inhumane treatment of animals is a concern of Florida citizens. The people of the state of Florida hereby limit the cruel and inhumane confinement of pigs during pregnancy as provided herein. It shall be unlawful for any person to confine a pig during pregnancy in an enclosure or to tether a pig during pregnancy on a farm in such a way that she is prevented from turning around freely. The ban on gestation crates has worked to discourage the industrial farming of pigs in Florida, helping animals and protecting our environment. The vote sent a powerful message to the pork industry and motivated animal welfare advocates across the country. Since 2002, 9 other states, Arizona, California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Michigan, Ohio, Oregon, and Rhode Island have followed Florida in banning gestation crates. Now, there were 2 pig farms in Florida. They both ended up just shutting down. Actually, one went to Georgia, I believe. The other one recently just got rewarded money from the government, saying that his farm was, he didn't have enough time to change over. So that is unfortunate, but again, there was time given to switch to something that most people would consider more humane. In Europe, gestation crates were first banned in Sweden and the United Kingdom, and by 2013, they were made illegal throughout the entire European Union. In 2010, gestation crates were banned in Tasmania and New Zealand. The pork industry has initiated a voluntary ban in all of Australia, and South Africa is discussing a phase out by 2020. In 2011, a bill was introduced in Tallahassee that would have banned veal production and battery cages for egg-laying hens. Senator Michael Bennet introduced a bill that would prohibit the tethering or confining of hens and calves in a manner that prevents them from standing up, lying down, extending their limbs, or turning around freely. Unfortunately, the bill didn't make any progress during the legislative session. Now, Florida currently holds some of the largest egg-producing factory farms in the country. More than 10 million hens are raised in facilities statewide, making Florida the 8th largest egg-producing state. On egg factory farms, hens are housed in rows of bare wire cages called battery cages. As many as 100,000 birds may be crammed into a single windowless building. 4 to 6 hens are crowded into each cage. In these conditions, they are unable to stretch their wings or even lie down comfortably. In the cages, hens can suffer from foot and leg deformities and feather loss from constantly rubbing against the wire. These cages also deprive them of certain natural behaviors, such as foraging, dust bathing, and raising their young. Shortly after birth, many hens have their beaks burned or cut off. Debeaking is an extremely painful but standard poultry industry practice. Although chickens can live to be over 10 years old, in egg farms they rarely see their second birthday. After about 2 years, when the hens are no longer producing enough eggs, they are sent off to slaughter. Transportation from farm to slaughterhouse is anything but humane, with hundreds of animals crammed into trucks for hours on end. There is also an inherent cruelty that cannot be rectified in the egg industry, and that is all male chicks born in the egg industry, including cage-free, free-range, and organic, are killed at birth because they do not produce eggs or grow fast enough to be made into meat. The intensive confinement of hens in battery cages has been recognized as inhumane in many countries. Germany, Switzerland, Sweden, and Austria have banned battery cages, and the entire European Union phased out cages in 2012. Back in 2007, a few Florida cities passed resolutions condemning battery cage egg production. And here's the resolution from the City of Hollywood. It reads, "The Commission of the City of Hollywood, Florida, opposes battery cage egg production based on the inherent cruelty of confining egg-laying hens in battery cages. And be it further resolved that the City Commission encourages consumers of eggs not to purchase eggs produced by caged hens." Now, there's a lot of talk about, again, going to cage-free, free-range, and what we would call humane farms. But again, there's inherent cruelties that just can't come out from that. And again, the male chicks born in the egg industry have served no purpose in the egg industry. After a few years, all male chicks, or all chicks in general, are all egg-laying hens will be sent off to slaughter. So these are things that we just can't get around. And there's not too much regulation when it comes to cage-free, free-range. I mean, you literally could put take just a really large room like an auditorium. You could put 100,000 hens in that room and call it cage-free. They're just not in individual cages. They're just in one big cage. If you open up the door, it literally could be called free range. There really doesn't have to be a designated time of how long they can be outside, how long the door is open. And for the ones in the far back, they might never get to see the light of day either. So these are just things that a lot of labels that we create to kind of make ourselves feel better about what we're participating in. On to dairy farms. Dairy farming is one of Florida's biggest animal industries, second only to the beef cattle industry in dollar value. For decades, the number of dairy farms in Florida has been in decline, while the size of herds on individual farms has increased dramatically. Today, most dairy farms in Florida have between 500 and 1,000 cows, and several huge mega dairies have over 3,000 cows. The lives of dairy cows are a constant cycle of artificial impregnation, birth, and milking. The heat and humidity of Florida's climate can make life difficult for dairy cows. Florida's hot and wet conditions also increase health problems such as mastitis, a common but serious bacterial infection of the mammary gland. Young female calves are moved into tiny individual pens where they spend the first weeks of their lives, cut off almost completely from contact with other cows. A strip of fabric serves as shade. Before a calf leaves the pen, she will be dehorned, a painful and stressful mutilation, usually conducted without anesthesia. After a few short years, a cow's milk production declines and she is sold for slaughter. Another common practice on dairy farms is tail docking. In 2014, the American Veterinary Medical Association officially opposed routine tail docking in dairy cattle. The Animal Rights Foundation of Florida has contacted dairy companies about tail docking, but nothing has ever come of it, and no laws have been proposed. Florida has also been named as being among the top 10 or top 11 veal producers in the United States. Male calves are of little value to the dairy industry. In 2000, workers at a dairy farm in Okeechobee were caught on film dumping day-old calves in a pit and shooting them with a pistol. More recently, in 2018, 2 dairy farm workers at MacArthur Dairy received 20-day jail sentences after undercover videos showed cows being beaten, burned, and kept in horrific conditions at dairy farms in Okeechobee County. Videos taken at the Burnham, Davie, Larson, and MacArthur dairy farms showed cows being punched, kicked, stabbed with pipes, and burned alive. The videos led to a national outcry and prompted public supermarkets to suspend deliveries of milk from the farms. On an environmental note, the amount of wastewater and manure produced on dairy farms is astounding and inevitably pollutes rivers, lakes, and groundwater. On dairy farms, enormous quantities of water are used to clean the animals and milking equipment, in operating sprinkles to cool animals, and in flushing manure out of barns, in addition to water cows drink. A study by the University of Florida estimated that 100 cows can produce over 100,000 gallons of wastewater each week. Beef is responsible for 41% of livestock greenhouse gas emissions, and that livestock accounts for 14.5% of total global emissions. And methane, the greenhouse gas cattle produce from both ends, is 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide. In fact, raising animals for food generates more greenhouse gases than all the cars, planes, ships, and trains in the world combined. A report released last year by the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change said that changing our diets, i.e., eating less meat, could contribute 20% of the effort needed to keep global temperatures from rising 2% Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Now, over the past decade, the animal agriculture industry has been behind the introduction of ag-gag bills in more than half of all state legislatures across the country. Now, these bills are designed to silence whistleblowers revealing animal abuses on industrial farms. 25 states have attempted to pass modern-day ag-gag laws, and 6 of those states have succeeded. The states that have passed ag-gag laws are Iowa, Missouri, Alabama, Arkansas, North Dakota, and Montana. In North Carolina and Kansas, litigation is still pending. And in Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, ag-gag laws have been ruled unconstitutional. Now in 2012, Florida Senator Jim Norman introduced the following ag-gag bill. A person may not knowingly enter any non-public area of a farm and without the prior written consent of the farm's owner or the owner's authorized representative, operate the audio or video recording function of any device with the intent of recording sound or images of the farm or farm operation. Senator Norman's bill was rejected in both the House and the Senate. I know for many of us, it sounds like, okay, they're protecting their industry, their property, but there is some scary things about this because ag-gag laws are basically allowing the industry to conceal what they're doing. And there was a case, I'm sorry, I can't remember, but it was in, it might have been in Illinois, where a woman literally got out of her car, and she was an animal rights activist. So she did get out of her car, and she took a picture of a dead pile, which is a pile of dead animals. In this case, I believe it was cows. It might have been pigs, one or the other. And so she took a picture from her car, literally on state property, and she all of a sudden was surrounded by the owners, the people that work there, and also police officers. And she was arrested for taking a picture of the outside of a farm. It took many, many months. Eventually, the lawsuit was dropped. But it is pretty scary that we're not really allowed to see what goes on in the industry. And the industry might say, well, we're protecting the health of these animals. We don't want people just to come in. But we're talking about people who work there who are then seeing stuff that they deem to be inhumane, and then something should be said. And so the industry is trying to prevent this. In fact, a 2012 nationwide poll commissioned by the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals showed that 71%, okay, 71% of Americans support undercover investigative efforts by animal welfare organizations to expose animal abuse on industrial farms, and 64% oppose making such efforts illegal. Whistleblowers and investigative journalists have a long and storied history in America, dating back to journalist Upton Sinclair's 1906 book, The Jungle, which uncovered horrible conditions inside America's meatpacking plants. Sinclair's whistleblowing led directly to the passage of the Federal Meat Inspection Act, the Pure Food and Drug Act, and the eventual formation of the Federal Food and Drug Administration. Ag laws pose a threat to a wide spectrum of values and issues Americans care about. It's not just about animal rights activists who oppose ag laws. Besides animal welfare, ag laws threaten food safety, marketplace transparency, workers' rights, free speech, and environmental protection. The largest kosher slaughterhouse in the United States was ag processors. They actually shut down, not because of any animal rights abuse, although the footage of the kosher slaughterhouses is pretty horrendous by anybody's standard. But they were actually cited and eventually had to shut down because of human rights violations. They were hiring illegal immigrants. And in that case, they didn't afford them their rights, because as an illegal immigrant, they didn't really have any rights. So they would deny them bathroom breaks, they would pay them lower wages. So there's a lot of other issues that affect our food process. It's not just about animals. It's about human rights. It's about, again, free speech. It's about being open to the public of what's going on. And the ag laws are troublesome because they do not reflect the public's will. Polls consistently show that the majority of Americans favor humane treatment of farmed animals. A 2012 poll conducted by the ASPCA by Lake Research revealed that 94% of the general American public agrees that from every, I'm quoting, from every step of their lives on a farm, from birth to slaughter, farm animals should be treated in a way that inflicts the least amount of pain and suffering, end quote. Now, while the industry pushes forward with more laws to prevent transparency, U.S. retail sales of plant-based foods grew 11%, 5 times more than total food sales, bringing the total plant-based market to $4.5 billion, right? $4.5 billion. The leading drivers of plant-based sales continue to be meat and dairy alternatives, including milks, cheese, yogurts, and ice cream. Sales of plant-based milks grew 6% over the past year and now make up 13% of the entire milk category, while cow's milk sales declined 3%. In response, the animal agriculture industry has filed lawsuits and appeals to the USDA to curb the growing movement for more compassionate alternatives to meat, dairy, and eggs. For over a decade, the dairy industry, threatened by the plant-based milk market, has fought to define the term milk to exclude anything plant-derived, from petitioning the Food and Drug Administration to encouraging members of Congress to propose the Dairy Pride Act, a bill that would have banned plant-based brands from using the term milk. The dairy industry has fought labels on plant-based milk packages. A federal court recently dismissed a class action lawsuit against Blue Diamond growers that claimed labeling Blue Diamond almond milk as milk was misleading and the product should be labeled imitation milk. So that was actually thrown out. I've never ever heard of somebody going to the supermarket and mistakenly taking soy milk or almond milk or coconut milk or cashew milk, thinking that it was cow's milk. So this is a desperate attempt by the dairy industry to keep their stranglehold on this market. But again, it's good. I mean, if we're in like a free market, we want people to have choices. We want people to be able to decide. I mean, there's not just one dairy corporation. Although when you think about it, there's only a handful of corporations that own the meat, dairy, egg, and fish industry. So while there might be new labels like Dean Foods, the largest dairy corporation in the United States, they own Hershey's, Land O'Lakes, and Horizon. They used to own Silk. I'm not quite sure if they still own Silk, but they own 3 of the biggest dairy companies in the U.S. So when you think about it, there's really not much choice there. If you're buying Horizon, you're also buying Hershey, but you're also buying Land O'Lakes. So it's nice to have more variety on the market. So, you know, having almond milk that might come from Silk or might come from from Diamond, Blue Diamond, or might come from So Delicious. So there's a variety out there for people to choose, and I think most people would want that. I don't think people want to be limited in their choice. This is another interesting one. In 2010, Hellmann's filed a lawsuit accusing Hampton Creek, which they're now actually called Just Inc., of false advertising, leading consumers to believe they were buying traditional mayonnaise, which should contain eggs. That's what Hellmann's was saying. The company said the U.S. Food and Drug Administration defines mayo as containing, quote, one or more egg yolks. Now, Hampton Creek CEO Josh Tetrick told the Huffington Post he always expected to emerge victorious in the case. We were on the right side of the law, he said. We have egg-free on the front of the jar. It's right there for people to see. The San Francisco-based company uses plant-derived proteins in place of eggs. Hampton Creek has attracted attention and funding from billionaire Bill Gates, PayPal co-founder and venture capitalist Peter Thiel, and Hong Kong magnate Li Ka-shing, the wealthiest man in Asia. I mean, this really was like a David and Goliath type story. Even though Just Inc. is actually, as I just mentioned, they're getting support from billionaires. At the time, it was really a David and Goliath type story, and it just was bad press. It was bad. It was a bad look for Hellmann's, and they gave up. They just basically said this is just not worth it. So what does Hellmann's do? They come up with their own vegan Hellmann's mayonnaise. So hey, that's perfect. It's kind of like Burger King introducing the Impossible Whopper, which I'm about to talk about in another minute or two. So times are changing, and companies are starting to realize, oh, I'm just told that the slides aren't changing. What slide can somebody tell me what slide that you guys have seen? Any of them? No slides?
It looks like it's on the first page.
It's on the first page?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not good. Let me try to. Okay. So it's saying that it's sharing. Let me see if I stop sharing. Share. Nobody can see the next slide. It's what slide are you seeing?
It's still the first slide.
All right. I don't know why. Can you? Let me see if I do this. I was trying to do. What do you see now?
Oh, there we go.
Okay, so you just can't see it in the. Okay. All right. So unfortunately,
now we can see it.
I won't start from the beginning, but all right. This was the gestation crate. This was the gestation crate law. This is an actual egg farm in Florida. This is the battery cages. They're just, if you think of a milk crate, that's what a battery cage is like. It's a milk crate. This was the City of Hollywood resolution, basically opposing the battery cages. So it just was a resolution. So obviously it was kind of more symbolic than anything else. Life of a dairy cow on a dairy farm in Florida. The male and female calves taken away from the mother shortly after birth. This is not chocolate. This is manure from these farms. They have these lagoons. When you think about the hurricanes that are hitting, especially when you think about like in Georgia and North Carolina and South Carolina. I mean, these are states that are big into pig farming. I mean, first of all, what happens to the pigs? They end up drowning. They die. There's no real like protocol. Like if you're dealing with 100,000 pigs, you don't ship them somewhere else. And then what happens to all the manure, these lagoons that hold all of their feces? It ends up in the water supply, in the rivers, in the streams. And again, this isn't just an animal rights issue. This is a human rights issue. How we raise animals on such a large scale is really detrimental to our health, to the health of the environment, and of course to the animals. This is the UN's government, UN United Nations report on livestock, and again, they've come out and said they're basically begging people to just if you're not going to eliminate animal products from your diet, at least do the meatless Monday. Do eating lower on the food chain is better. Is certainly better for the environment. It's better for our health and it's better for the animals. So if nothing else, these were the ag-gag. This is the landscape as of June 2019. So you can kind of see what's going on here. And as I mentioned, there's numerous states that have passed it. Some are pending, and others have been actually determined unconstitutional. So this is the industry and the amount of money that's being made off of this. So you know, there's a lot of money being made off of this industry, and you know, in a free market, this is a good thing. So you know, people have alternatives. So I mean, I think I'm pretty sure everybody on this call or who'll be watching later, you know, is familiar with almond milk, soy milk, coconut milk, cashew milk, familiar with the coconut milk yogurt, soy milk yogurt, familiar with the company Silk. You might know that Ben & Jerry's now has dairy-free ice cream. They have, I believe, they have like close to 16 flavors, which is amazing. And this is all within the last year or two. I mean, it really is amazing. I've been vegan for about 18 years, and I'm just, my mind is boggled with how fast this movement is really come. But there's still a lot of work to be done, because when you think about it, 9 billion land animals are slaughtered every year in the United States. 9 billion. That's land animals. I'm not talking about marine animals. Well, I don't know how many marine animals, because we don't view them as individuals. We view them as tons. Now, worldwide, over 50 billion land animals are being slaughtered. The estimate for fish would be about 1 trillion. 1 trillion marine animals are being slaughtered, which is just destroying the ecosystem in the ocean. Large trawler nets are ripping up the ocean bed. Plus, we've polluted the oceans, which I think I'll talk about in a little bit. So it's just it's a really, really intensive industry that we got going. And when you think about it, there's so much food insecurity here in the United States and obviously worldwide. The statistic is that every 3.6 seconds, someone dies of starvation. I just don't get it. And there's 50 billion land animals being killed. There's over 1 trillion marine animals, and yet 3.6 seconds, someone dies of starvation. The system is not working properly. This is the New York Times article about the dairy industry trying to monopolize the term milk, which is kind of funny, because I think, like, what happens when a woman becomes pregnant? Can she not call her milk milk? All right, I've been asked to open up the discussion, which I will in a second. I think I'm almost done. Hellmann's, this is where I was last off. The image, the Just Mayo, that is the egg-free mayo, which is fantastic. They also have a Just Egg, which is really cool. It's an egg that scrambles and you can make an omelet. This is the Hellmann's. All right, let me just really quickly run through this. This is. In 2019, officials in nearly 30 states have proposed bills to prohibit companies from using words such as meat, burger, sausage, jerky, or hot dog unless the product came from an animal that was born, raised, and slaughtered in a traditional way. Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Dakota, South Dakota, Oklahoma, and Wyoming have already enacted such laws. In Missouri, the first state where the ban took effect, violators incurred a $1,000 fine and as much as a year in prison. Mississippi's new law states, I quote, "Any food product containing cell-cultured animal tissue or plant-based or insect-based food shall not be labeled meat or as a meat product." And this is a really desperate attempt to hold on to what they have. Now, the U.S. Department of Agriculture is still weighing the U.S. Cattlemen's Association's petition for a policy change to define meat and beef as being only products from animals raised and harvested in the traditional manner. However, these bills have not stopped the charge of plant-based alternative companies. The all-vegan company Beyond Meat raised nearly $250 million to grow its line of plant-based meats, with shares rocketing in their public debut. And as the Beyond Meat stock price has soared, some of the biggest retailers and restaurants in America have got on board with plant-based alternatives. All right, so this is the Impossible Burger. I always make the joke, it's Murder King. Well, Murder King now has an Impossible Burger that has no cholesterol, has less saturated fat, it has 17 grams of protein, and it uses 95% less land, 74% less water, and produces 87% less greenhouse gas emissions, and only costs $1 more. For an extra $1, you can get a burger that's healthier for you, healthier for animals, and healthier for the planet. It's a burger. Is it really that healthy? No, it's a burger. You want something healthy, eat what comes from the ground. Eat fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. But as I tell the students I talk to, this is great transition food. All right, I never ever thought I'd be walking into a Murder King in my entire life after I went vegetarian and then vegan. But here I am, and I commend them. I think it's great. If you want to make it vegan, just say no mayo, or bring your own mayo. Bring the Just Mayo or a Vegenaise. This is continuing with KFC. KFC recently introduced the Beyond Fried Chicken to one KFC in Georgia, and it sold out. It did so well. It basically sold out more than like the regular stuff sells out in a week. So I think in the next year or two, KFC will be having vegan chicken. Dunkin' Donuts has actually introduced the Beyond Sausage. It's a breakfast sausage. It's available right now in certain stores in Manhattan, and hopefully it will roll out nationwide. Earlier this month, Smithfield Foods, the largest pork producer in the world, announced they would launch a plant protein line under the Pure Farmland brand. Maple plant-based breakfast patties, simple seasoned plant-based protein starters, and 6 other products will debut in stores in September. Tyson Foods is debuting its own meatless protein line, and Nestle is rolling out a plant-based line as well. All right. According to a 2019 report by market research firm, the NPD Group, meat eaters made up 95% of people who bought a plant-based burger at a fast food restaurant last year. All right. This is the Beyond Burger, found at most supermarkets, BurgerFi, TGI Fridays. This is really quickly, it's a win-win situation. It's got more protein, it's got more iron, it's got less saturated fat, no cholesterol. It's about the same total fat, and even has a little bit more calories. And if you look at it, if you're getting a burger at most restaurants, you have no idea whether it's GMO-free. You don't know if it's hormone-free. There's always naturally occurring hormones because we eat young animals. Antibiotic-free, not sure. And the Beyond Burger is also soy and gluten-free. So if you have concerns about soy and gluten, there you go. I do want to leave you with a note that this is just an animal rights activist talking about the importance of this. But keep in mind, the number one killer in the United States is heart disease. So finally, from a health perspective, a whole foods plant-based diet of fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, nuts, and seeds is the best way to keep saturated fat intake low and avoid cholesterol completely. A whole foods plant-based diet can yield the lowest risk of degenerative diseases, including the leading cause of death in the United States, heart disease. And according to the Academy of Nutrition of Dietetics, the largest organization of dietitians and nutrition in the United States, a 2009 they updated it, it's 2016 peer-reviewed position paper on vegetarian and vegan diets states, appropriately planned vegetarian diets, including total vegetarian or vegan diets, are healthful, nutritionally adequate, and may provide health benefits in the prevention and treatment of certain diseases. Well-planned vegetarian and vegan diets are appropriate for individuals during all stages of the life cycle, including pregnancy, lactation, infancy, childhood, adolescence, older adulthood, and for athletes. All right. This is the former president of the American College of Cardiology. I recommend a plant-based diet to my patients because I know it's going to lower their blood pressure and decrease their cholesterol. And according to Dr. Michael Greger, only one way of eating has ever been proven to reverse heart disease in the majority of patients, a diet centered around whole plant-based foods. If that's all a whole food plant-based diet could do, reverse our number one killer, shouldn't that be the default diet until proven otherwise? The fact that it may also be effective in preventing, treating, and arresting other leading killers seems to make the case for plant-based eating simply overwhelming. So finally, here's your new food pyramid. What we choose to eat is not a personal decision. The ramifications of our food choices affect not only our health, but that of the planet and the welfare of other beings. Here's your new, compassionate, sustainable, and healthy food pyramid. I hope you will consider the choices you have and the ramifications of the choices you make. So I want to thank you for listening, and obviously I'd be very happy to try to answer any questions you have, thoughts, concerns that might come up.
Okay, thanks, James. All right, we're going to open this up now for questions. And Kendra, can you let us know how much time we have left?
Yes, we have 20 minutes.
Okay, we've got 20 minutes. That's about 15 minutes for Q&A, and we'll just open it up. And James, you can field the questions as they come forward.
Great, thank you.
I have some comments, but I maybe have too many. So I'm the registered dietitian here. I've been teaching college nutrition for a very long time. Taught global nutrition, so I'm real interested in like the whole big picture out there. I want to make a comment about the idea that all these various quote milks on the market are like milk, because they aren't. And I understand your thought that you know, just let's have more competition. But I'm well aware from many years that people do not know how to read a food label. They don't read a food label. They will not recognize that almond milk has just 1 gram of protein in it and cow's milk has 8 grams. And they just will say, oh, it says milk, therefore it's just as good as the nutritional quality found in dairy. And that's true for a number of the others. They don't have, unless it's been added to kind of try to make it up to what it would be, they don't have anywhere near the nutritional value that cow's milk would be giving them. So that's a bit of a problem that I'd like to mention. So I don't think it's really bad for different industries to be saying that they, you know, to fight back against labeling. You know, if something calls milk, people automatically assume cow's milk and assume that it's just as good. So that's one comment.
Well,
okay, well, thank you very much, James. If you want to respond to that, that's great.
Yeah, so I understand that. I mean, the fact that milk is a very unnecessary product for the human diet. It's we're the only species to consume the milk of another animal, and we're the only species to consume the milk after infancy. The only liquid humans need is water. So that's really the only liquid we need. Now, we need milk as an infant. It's a growth hormone. It's meant to grow the body at its greatest time of need. It's really a defense mechanism, because if we were in nature, we'd be very vulnerable. So you want to grow as fast as possible. So milk is composed of growth hormones naturally occurring, cholesterol and saturated fat, things you need as a child. As you get older, it's not necessary anymore. Obviously, you need some fat in your diet, but the cholesterol your body is naturally making. So cow's milk is, to me, it's just a very absurd product. I mean, we don't drink dog's milk, we don't drink cat milk, we don't drink rat milk. We've just been trained to think, okay, this is our only source of calcium. And if you look at the food pyramid or the food plate, dairy has its own section. I never understood that. Why would dairy get its own section? Why can't broccoli get its own section? Because broccoli has calcium. Why not oranges and beans that also have calcium have their own section? So what it comes down to is that these pyramids were created by the meat, dairy, egg industries, and it's an unnecessary product. While I do agree that almond milk, by the way, almond milk is incredibly detrimental to the environment. It takes a lot of water to grow almonds. But when it comes to like soy milk, which has just as much protein as cow's milk, it's much easier to grow. If you're concerned about soy, you don't have to do soy. It's a phytoestrogen, so it's not really that much of a concern unless you have allergies to soy. But I would recommend, you don't need to drink any kind of milk. It's really more transition food. If you want calcium, go directly to the source, which would be the vegetables. The vegetables provide you with the minerals. The fruits provide you with the vitamins. Those are the original source of nutrients. I mean, where does a cow get his calcium? He gets it from the grass. So we don't need to eat grass, but you can eat the next best thing, which would be vegetables and fruits. And again, so yes, I agree that like it's maybe not the most nutritious. Almond milk is really more sugar than anything else. You can make your own almond milk. You can make your own cashew milk. Just take cashews, put it in a blender, add water, blend it up, and you got yourself cashew milk.
James, we can get another question in here.
Sure, but I just do want to say that like my issue is that the milk industry is basically selling a product that's really high in cholesterol, high in fat, high in animal growth hormones naturally occurring, and they basically are touting this health benefit of this product that 65% of the human population is lactose intolerant, 65%. So now that they're claiming that they can be the only ones to say it's milk, to me it's very disturbing and it's very deceitful.
Okay, let's see if we can get another question in here, James.
Hello, anybody hear me?
Question. Can you hear me? Glenn Whitworth here. I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
James, been listening to your speech, and it's been very enlightening. And I just have a question. Just that I had to get on a phone call, so I didn't catch the end. I didn't know if you touched on it, but with what the current administration is doing with the FDA, giving the slaughterhouses, the people, the industry to regulate themselves, what kind of impact do you see that having? I mean, prior to that, I know I've been seeing in the news, millions of tons of beef being recalled because of listeria and other deadly bacteria. Is this something that you're going to see that you'll think will progressively get worse back to the 1920s when we had to enact the USDA?
Yeah, I think it's going to backfire. I think what happens is the industry is being pushed against the wall, and so these laws that they're creating, these ag laws, are going to hurt them in the end, because people are going to wake up and say, why do you need that law? What are you trying to hide from us? And so I think in the end it's going to backfire. And just not to go back to the other point, but cow's milk, I saw in the market now, they say with almonds. so that just shows you right there that the industry is definitely scared. They're definitely realizing that there's now a growing market for other alternatives. And so I think the laws that they're trying to create are gonna hurt them in the end. But it's going to be a time where we're not going to, we might not know what's really going on. And yeah, there's going to be maybe more of these recalls. And people hopefully will take note, and hopefully it doesn't, make people more sick or even kill people until people start to wake up and say, okay, we want better conditions. We want more transparency. That's what I'm hoping.
Okay. Well, we've got a few minutes left. Any other questions?
Hello.
Okay, yeah, I think you're on. Go ahead, please. Your question.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I think we all can hear you. Please, James is ready for the question.
Oh, hi. I can't hear myself, so it's kind of hard. Paul Murphy from Sarasota. I thought I was going to be the vegan out on this call, but I'm glad I wasn't. Been a vegan for 17 years now myself, but I also was part of the vegan movement in Florida that helped ban dog racing in the state, as well as closed down Ringling Circus for, the first time in 100 years. And I also tried to keep other vegans on the integrity of certain things, because it's one thing getting restaurants and stuff to add a plant-based thing, but it's another thing to keep vegans on the same integrity of their diet as we're preaching. And I wanted to make a comment on the Impossible brand not being a product that would be supported by vegans, because of the fact that they did test their GMO product or their GMO ingredient on 150 rats in a laboratory. So being on the call for animal welfare, we got to be looking out for things like that too, that even though the ingredients on the label, which you cannot read because they usually don't sell retail yet, they can't legally be certified vegan or organic. One, because of the testing on animals, and PETA has a really nice article on that. And the other is the fact that they have a GMO ingredient that they had to get the FDA approval for, and they can't be organic because of that either. So there's those ethical and health-related things in even alleged plant-based brands. And another comment I wanted to make on the nut milks too is I wouldn't buy any of the nut milks on the shelf unless I know what they're made out of. And I would prefer to do, as was suggested earlier, make my own. So I would encourage everybody just to make your own almond milks and nut milks and feed milks and alternative milks from scratch, and not buy the products on the shelf. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you.
Hi.
Any more for James?
Yeah, this is Rachel.
Hello, Rachel.
James.
This is our president.
Hi.
Please.
I'm the chairperson of the board for the Food Policy Council, and I appreciate your presence on our call today and all that research you did and all the information you brought to us.
Thank you.
I am not about to go into arguing about the nutritional benefits of milk, of plant milk, of GMO, of any of those things. Where my interest lies is how can we use, so I understand that the ag-gag laws are a tool that are being used by certain segments of the food system to keep some information away from the general public. And there are obvious, to me, what seem obvious problems with the way that we're currently raising, slaughtering, and eating, consuming meat. In a world where it's a very steep uphill battle to convince everybody to stop eating meat, how can we use our policies, our public laws, to facilitate a shift to a more plant-forward diet? So the that's really what I'm more interested in right now.
Okay, yeah. So it really is difficult because there's so much money invested between the two, between the politicians and the animal agriculture business. I mean, many of the people, like I believe there was the head of the Monsanto who is now like the USDA, in charge of USDA. So there's a lot of people that, kind of they're sleeping with each other. They go from one job to the other and they work with each other. So that's why a lot of these ag laws were being able to pass, because somebody in the industry can go up to a representative in Congress or the Senate and say, hey, this is what I like to do, and these corporations make a lot of money, so there's exchange of money. I really think it's up to the consumer to really make that decision, and a lot of companies are eliminating cage-free. That's one of the things. Even fast food companies, and McDonald's is one of the worst when it comes to it, but slowly changes are being made. And so I think if people they create an initiative for the ballot and say, hey, we want to introduce this idea, like, gestation crate ban, battery cage ban, tail docking ban, I think more laws can be passed that way, or at least it can make people more aware of it, even if it doesn't pass. But personally, my own thing is I like to reach, in the schools. I mean, I like to get the information out there early on, and it's not I'm trying to brainwash kids. I'm not trying to tell them what to do. I simply am trying to give them information that I wasn't given as a child, and they can then take it for themselves and decide what they want to do with it. I always make the disclaimer that I'm not here to tell you what to do, how to think, how to feel, or even what to eat. I'm just here to give you information, and the information that I give is backed up. It's backed up by USDA statistics, backed up by the CDC, backed up by the UN reports, backed up by the EPA, what's left of it. So I'm giving you sources that are coming from the government, and then now you can take that information, decide what you want to do with it. But it's a challenge. It really is a challenge to get the administration, and not just this administration, but any administration, because it's just Dean Foods. Again, Dean Foods, back in 2008, the Obama-McCain elections, they gave $500,000 to Republicans, $500,000 to Democrats. They don't care who goes in. They don't care.
James, I'm going to jump in for a minute because we are quickly running out of time, and I want this to be a dialogue.
Yeah.
So I heard a couple of things, and I heard for you what the priority was education.
Yeah.
Is educating young people and all people about the impacts of their choices, of their food choices on themselves and the environment and other animals.
Right.
What I also heard was that some of these suggested policy changes, like the battery hen cages and the tail docking, just the push to work on these policies could act as channels for education to the masses.
Yes.
Okay, so those are two. So because of course we are the Florida Food Policy Council, so I'm really trying to steer our conversation back around to that policy piece. Not only could the actual legislation itself have a positive impact on the welfare of animals, but just the attempt to get the pieces of legislation in could provide valuable opportunities for education.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Rachel. That is terrific, and thanks for focusing or including a focus on policy, and that continues to be probably the most urgent and important aspect of this. And I do celebrate your position on individual work with getting folks aware of it. But I do think that when things are done publicly, especially from the platform of either a policy council or through direct legislation, that there's a powerful educational dimension to that as well. So we agree with that. I want to get one question in that is of interest to me that's come to me through 3 other people that I don't know if they're on the line or not today, but they wanted me to be sure to ask about it. So this is a question about beekeeping. Are you with me on this now?
Yeah.
Okay, there are a number of people that try to live a healthy lifestyle and also with respect for all animals. And they are stridently opposed to beekeeping because of the idea that the bees are in some way being exploited. What is your thought on this from the perspective of an animal activist?
Yeah, so from an animal rights perspective, we don't consume anything that comes from an animal. Bees produce honey for themselves. They feed it to their young, they consume it themselves, and they use it to insulate their hives. There's no actual nutritional value to honey.
Yeah, what is the position on beekeeping, though? Would that be advocated, opposed, neutral from a perspective of an animal rights activist?
From an animal rights perspective, the idea is that simply it's not necessary. You can make some claims to medicinal value, but no nutritional value, equivalent to table sugar. But the point is that in order to do this, most times especially on commercial scale, the female, the queen, will have her wings removed because everything is being done for the queen. So it's a pretty, these animals do have a central nervous system. They're sentient beings. They're able to raise their young and care for themselves and map out places where they can and can't go. So they are living, feeling creatures. So just the cruelty involved in beekeeping on a commercial scale is pretty horrendous. And then after the season is over, they end up usually as killing them because it's not profitable to keep them alive. So the idea, I always say, look, if you really want to eat, honey, be like Winnie Pooh, stick your hand in the tree and, get what you get. And it's the same for if you want to eat humane meat, eat roadkill. It's really that's really the only humane there is. Or, eat your dog when your dog dies. No difference in a dead dog and dead pig. Rotting corpses both end. But I understand people think they're as family members. But the idea is that our diet is very arbitrary, very hypocritical. But yeah, so just a long story short.
Okay, well,
for
I think that's enlightening, and I think that including material about bees is important because there is an enormous push worldwide, really, but especially in the United States and in the state of Florida, to encourage people to be beekeepers and to establish, bee colonies on their property. There's also issues related to pollination of plants. There's a whole story there, an index that often doesn't come up in the discussion of animal rights, and I just wanted to get that out there. I'm not going to say anything about earthworms and maintaining worm farms, but that's another issue that's come up from some of my animal rights friends. Okay, listen, I'm looking at the clock right now. Kendra, how much time do we have?
It looks like we just have about 1 minute left.
Okay, well, in the minute that remains, I want to thank James Wildman for his wonderful presentation, dynamic, engaging, challenging to all of us in many ways, I think. And I also want to invite everyone to come again next month, last Friday of the month, for our next food forum, Florida Food Forum. Watch your emails, watch for the information for weighing in on it, for logging in, and also join the Florida Food Policy Council. We'd love to have you with us. Thank you all very much, and we look forward to hearing from you again and looking forward to seeing you join our membership. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone. Have a great rest of the day and a great week ahead. Bye now.
Hi, thank you.
Bye, thank you.